Call the honourable member for Hull.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Being a Victorian, I take no sides on this other matter. Deputy Speaker, on Wednesday the 14th of May, I had the honour to attend the Labour Cause and Civil Society in Vietnam conference, organised by Bloc 8406 and hosted by the member for Fowler here in this Parliament House. The conference focused on the continuing suppression of the right of association and the right of peaceful assembly in Vietnam, and of the plight of Labour activists Ms Do Thai Minh Han, Mr Don Hoi Chung and Ms Nguyen Huang Quoc Hung, who have all suffered harsh and unjust jail terms for simply defending the rights of fellow workers. Mr Deputy Speaker, basic human rights, such as the right of association and the right of peaceful assembly, are still suppressed in Vietnam. Members of independent unions and civil society organisations that operate outside of the Communist Party framework are still harassed, still terrorised and even jailed, as in the case of Ms Do Thai Minh Han, a workers' rights advocate who is currently serving a 7 years prison sentence. Han, I will call her Han Do's mother, Mrs Tran Ngoc Min, attended the conference and delivered an incredibly brave and powerful presentation and made an emotional plea for the Australian government to press the Vietnamese government to address the concerns she has about her daughter's plight, the plight of exploited workers in Vietnam, and the issue of the Vietnamese government's continuing abuse of human rights. Mrs Minh Tran detailed in her speech at the conference that her 29-year-old daughter is currently incarcerated in the Thanh Thuan prison in Hanoi City, Vietnam. The prison is 2,000 kilometres from where her family lives. Now, the reason why Minh Han has been in prison for over 4 years to date, as I said before, is because she and two of her friends, Ms Hung Nguyen and Mr Chong Don, bravely stood up for factory workers at the Mai Phong shoe factory in a protest against exploitative work conditions. The trio wrote and circulated a list of demands when workers at this factory went on strike as a result of the company's arbitrary payment policies and their managers' abusive behaviour. Now, after standing up for factory workers, Minh Han was arrested and taken away on the 23rd of June 2010 in the Lam Dong province of Vietnam's Central Highlands. On the day that she was arrested, police brutally bashed Minh Han in front of her mother, resulting in her face bleeding profusely. Minh Han was transported to Ho Chi Minh's City Police Headquarters and was detained there for 8 months before she was tried in a proceeding that did not afford her due legal process. She was sentenced to 7 years jail. Her friends were sentenced to 7 years jail and 9 years jail respectively. The last 4 years, Minh Han has been transferred from one prison to another, simply for protesting about workers' rights. She's been forced to do hard labour and has been assaulted several times. In one particularly brutal incident, she was stripped naked and physically abused in a prison. According to her mother, Minh Han is experiencing what may be the symptoms of breast cancer, but guess what? She's been denied visits by a specialist doctor, despite several requests. This is completely unacceptable. Urgent medical care needs to be taken and provided to this young lady. The efforts of her friends, Chong Don and Ms Hung Nguyen, need to be recognised. According to Freedom Now, Chong Don is the founding member of the United Farmers and Workers Organisation. He and his girlfriend have been long-term members of the Victims of Injustice, a group that advocates on behalf of land confiscation. Since being arrested, these two individuals have been plagued with violations of fair trial standards and have had prolonged periods of solitary confinement. They've also been repeatedly beaten. As a result, we understand that Ms Hung is now deaf in one ear and Mr Don has lost the use of one hand. The Vietnamese government, or the regime, should be condemned in the strongest possible terms for this violation and treatment and this abuse of human rights of these unfairly jailed prisoners. Minh Han's mother has noted that the Vietnamese communist regime is currently desperate to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership to advance their economies, and she hopes that before this particular matter occurs, that her daughter and her friends and all prisoners of conscience in Vietnam are released. I wish to commend Mr Di Quan Nguyen, the President of Bloc 8046 in Australia, for organising this particular conference. We have many, and I think the member for Gordon would be the same, members of Vietnamese background that worry very much about the rights of their families and loved ones in Vietnam. The Vietnamese government continues to abuse human rights, and I stand here in this parliament to condemn them for that abuse.